Hey, digital virtual friends, it's Suzy Lolley. I'm so glad you're here watching one of my videos. And if it's your first time, welcome. I would love for you to like, subscribe, share if you feel like this would benefit anybody else. My mission is simple. It's to help teachers find their more time, more from technology, more student engagement. And then this video is my first one where I'm focusing on more hope. Y'all, I was a classroom teacher for 11 years, but I've been in public education for 16 years, and there's so many days that we feel defeated. And I can tell you one of the biggest problems I had with feeling defeated was feeling like I could not work out the parent-teacher relationship. And so as I'm looking back in hindsight's 2020, I try to put together some tips that I think would have helped me and some things that did help me in the classroom to work better with parents. So if that's one of the things that you feel like you're struggling with, I hope this video will really be a blessing. So as I've been planning this blog and reassessing why it's here, I've told you guys on other videos that my theme is helping you find your more. And I don't think you can find your more if you are completely stressed out all the time. So better ways to help you deal with the biggest problems that you encounter in your classroom. I don't know about you, but when I was still in the classroom, which I was for 11 years, my biggest job stressors were grading and parents. And here's the deal. A lot of times those big job stressors were tied together. It was because of my grading that parents were mad, or because of my grading that I had negative communication with parents. Some issues were in my control. You know, as I look back, as I reflect, in hindsight's always 2020. So I'm hoping that my experience can give you the benefit of hindsight without having to go through all the things I went through. So some of the issues in my control. First of all, I was an English teacher. If you grade English, you can give me a big amen. Anything where there's a lot of reading or project-based content, I wasn't grading fast enough, and then I would maybe not communicate with parents, hey, this is going to take me a while to grade. Or I know at one time I had a parent issue. It's because I had a class who had done really poorly on an assignment. I was deciding whether to put that grade in or not, and I mistakenly held on to that classes where I put the other ones in. So then I had to go back a little too late and put that class's grades in. So that got me in trouble at some point. Also, you know, anytime you email, your meaning can be misconstrued. Or you could be having a student issue and you're trying to work it out with the kid, but it just keeps getting worse and worse, and maybe you have not communicated with parents early enough. So here's the deal. I'm going to talk to you about ways to avoid parent problems in this presentation. But the times I did make a mistake, I had two choices. I could deflect what I had done, or I could apologize. Y'all, apologizing in any situation is one of the most humbling things you can do. But especially in your profession, you feel like if I apologize, if I say I was wrong, this is going to get worse. I have hardly ever had that happen. And I can tell you that apologizing has often made advocates out of enemies. I can think of a few parents in particular that when I just said, listen, I'm sorry that this happened. It's, you know, not something I intended to happen. This is my plan going forward. I'm going to share with you some solutions that have come out of that. It has put the parents on my side rather than them thinking that I'm an enemy and we're on different sides. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of how you can prevent parent problems and some practical solutions you can do. First of all, you want to be proactive. So in my case, I always believe that if you and a kid have an issue, it could be an issue over maybe a dress code situation that happened that day, maybe the kid who puts his head down on his desk, you know, any kind of an issue where you feel like a kid is angry over a grade they got. Anytime you have the opportunity, you call home first. In most classrooms, phones aren't allowed to be out just the whole time, so maybe the parent has not been communicated with yet. But anytime I had an angry kid, I felt like my job to call the parent first and always report my side of the story first. And some of you might think that sounds really immature or whatever, but listen, if you've taught any kind of kids who are old enough to be deceptive to their parents, you know they're going to give them whatever version that is limited of what they think happened. So you want to be the one to call before the kid goes home, if at all possible. Even if it's right after school, they're getting on the buses, make that the time you call. And then if grades are going to go home, you're going to definitely call before report cards go out. And I'm going to talk more specifically about that in just a minute. So let's talk about how you communicate. Email is so quick, and it can be tempting just to use email for all our communication, but here's the deal. Email is good for quick, generic conversation. It's not something that you want to use for big deal stuff. I always use the phone for things that were going to be behavior issues or where I knew that it was going to escalate into something where we had to go back and forth. I would rather go back and forth on a phone and keep my cool. I don't mean go back and forth in a grouchy way, but be able to keep my cool and use the phone, because there they can hear my inflection, they can hear my voice. I can even make a joke if I need to. I can do something to bring levity to the situation. So here's the deal. If a parent contacts you through email, and a lot of times they're firing off an angry email, we have to be the bigger professional. I want you to start in the email by responding and saying, thank you for your support. Okay, it's just a really easy, quick sentence. And I always ended mine with a smiley face. Now, sometimes that parent was not being supportive. They were being what I like to call a jerk. But if they're communicating with you and it could get heated, always say thank you for your support. Just assume that parent actually wants to help their kid. I always use smiley faces just because, again, in an email, you can't tell if I'm being humorous. You can't tell if I'm being serious. I just like to add a little, I think smiley faces are like the most professional of the emojis you could use. And they just gave a little tone and context to the email. And then if I knew the issue was going to escalate, I would say, I would like to call you and discuss this. I'm available such and such time. What's your best phone number? I think it meant the world to them to think that I would take time to call them, first of all, but it also would just simplify, again, that back and forth. It would simplify it in so many ways. My tone, but also the time it takes to send a full-length email chain. And I do give kudos to my former principal, because he would not let us email for serious stuff. So although we were frustrated because it took a lot of time to call kids who were failing or whatever, but again, they could hear my inflection and it would let us work out the issue quicker than on several email chains. Y'all, I want to clarify that I did have older students. If this is the first video of mine you've watched, I taught middle and high school for 11 years. Then I was a technology trainer and still am. I've been in a couple places now with that. But I know that we can feel like sometimes we're coddling kids, but we need to use Remind 101 or things like that for them and their parents, because parents are often the ones who care more than the kids. Unfortunately, the grades would be better. We wouldn't have to communicate as much if the kids cared, but most parents do care. And so any nudges we can give them, email, remind, it helps them nudge their kids. Now, I did not send Remind 101 is what it was called back then, but I didn't send remind messages about everything. But if there was something I felt was unsaid, like maybe I was unclear, I had a class rush out the door, or I was unclear or was a big grade, I always sent a message. And again, including parents in that helps them be proactive. It may, again, feel like we're coddling, but we either can deal with the consequences now or later. We can either give a reminder now and get better grades and more participation, or we can just say, well, they should be learning it. And you know, we have to do more paperwork later. I'm all about the less paperwork later. Can I get an amen? I want to give you kind of my philosophy on zeros. Anytime a kid was absent, or as soon as a kid did not turn in an assignment, I gave them a 0 in the computer. Several teachers that I've talked to say, well, I don't want kids' averages to go down when they're absent and they can't do the work. Here's my philosophy. If I don't put in the zeros, kids won't make up the work. Who's going to be doing all the reminding? Me. I'll be like, buddy, your grade's going to go down if you don't do that work. And I just think it's a temporary tank in their grade, but it's a greater likelihood of action. So even if kids are absent or if they didn't do the work, I put in the 0 immediately. That does not mean they can't make it up. In my school, we had like a 10% off a day late work policy. I don't know what your policy is. You may take it for full credit up to the end of the semester. I've heard lots of different ones. But either way, kids will not make up the work unless that 0 is in there to remind them, oh, I have a 38 in this class. Maybe it's because I haven't made up my missing work, and kind of gives them that nudge that is a big deal to them. And even if the kids are at home, if they see that immediate 0, some kids are home because they have lice or chicken pox. It's not something that's making them sick enough where they can't do work. So it gives them a little reminder too that they can make it up from home. Now here's what I did do though. In my grade book, I would put in a code called ABS, and that would let parents know, hey, this isn't something where your kid just was a bum and didn't do it. This is something where they were absent, and I made sure to communicate the meaning of all special codes. I had a code for excused, absent, missing work, plagiarism, all different kinds of things, and I would make sure to communicate all those frequently. They were actually printed out on every progress report I sent home. And then here's how you can manage this. You're like, Suzy, I don't have time to grade stuff immediately. You don't have to grade it. All you have to do is know who has a 0. So if you're using the number system, like I had talked about in a previous video, then the student helper can give you a list of whose work is missing just by going down the list of numbers. It's not a privacy violation because they're just looking at number 1, number 7, number 18 don't have their work. They give you a list. It takes you 35 seconds to put that in the computer as a 0 so that even if you haven't had time to grade the work yet, the missing work is still at least in the computer. Parents know whether they were absent or not that they have a 0 for this, and you will get more feedback and more work turned in. I absolutely guarantee it. And we have to teach the parents too. I know we're always talking about other duties as assigned. You know, I'll jokingly, when I see a principal having to clean up water that's leaked in the school, I'm like, ooh, other duties as assigned, or moving furniture or something like that. We all have other things that we feel like probably aren't our responsibility. But if we want our classrooms to go better and our parent communication to be better, let's just be proactive. So, as an English teacher, I spent a lot of time on writing. I had some parents who were good in English, but I was not the English teacher they had. So times have changed, methods have changed. I made up methods for my classroom that they had never heard of because I invented them. Or parents might have struggled in English. Maybe they're experts in math or something. And so bottom line is, again, most of them want to help their kids. What can we do to make it easier for them to help their kids? So I have two different thoughts here. First of all, send out rubrics and directions to parents for major projects. Okay, so you could say, hey guys, I have assigned this project today. Here's the rubric. Here are the expectations. I had one parent that was questioning a grade. She was really frustrated because of something that her kid had gotten on the grade. Well, first of all, my rubrics were very clear. You knew down to the point what the kid had lost points for. I was very clear about marking on the paper and on the rubric. So that was good. However, when I sent her my method, I call it CDC squared. It's the way that I taught writing and taught kids to use support and quotes and organize a paragraph. When I sent her my PowerPoint about CDC squared, she's like, oh my gosh, this is so clear. Like, I'm surprised she missed this. And I heard nothing else from the parent about that grade. So what could have made it better is if I had sent that in advance. I did usually send rubrics and reminders in advance, but don't feel like you can't even share the directions. It's not so that the parent will do the work, in case you're thinking that. But it is so you will get a better product. You're watching them work on it in class, but parents are also reminding them at home, hey, you've got this big project. What are you doing about that? And then also, I'm thinking of my math friends here, but also in English. You know, maybe I was teaching a grammar term. Maybe you're teaching something in math or science or social studies. What's a little quick video you could do to help them teach their kids the way you teach it? I've seen really good examples of this from teachers that I've worked with in elementary school where I didn't know there were 3 ways to subtract. Who knew? We were taught to write it on a piece of paper and you get it right or you don't. But I saw teachers teaching the parents how to use base 10 blocks or how to use a number line. It's really cool because then they're not trying to search out this newfangled method. You've got something right there. And I'm going to give you one additional tip. Don't just post it on your website. If it's something that you're concerned kids need that outside support or need a nudge or it's going to be a big deal to their grade, go ahead and make that video tutorial, and you can post it on the website, but tell parents, hey, it could be through a remind message or whatever, through an email. Hey parents, this is our next big deal assignment. Not every little paper you're going to do, but I've got tutorials for it. I have a video for it. I have my handouts. Would you mind looking over that and seeing if there's a way you want to bring your expertise in to help your kids? Empower them. It's not coddling. It's making everybody feel like we're all a team. After all, most parents do want to help their kids. So I want to end with this, that parent volunteers are not just for elementary school, and getting parents involved is not just for elementary school. Again, I was a middle and high school teacher. I did not have parents in my classroom every day. However, I did look for opportunities to involve them. I needed them. Maybe they had a business that could support our classroom. Maybe I needed, hands to come make a copy or whatever. Some parents in middle and high school still do want to get involved. So don't limit yourself to thinking that if you don't teach elementary, nobody wants to be involved. So I want to tell you about an event I almost canceled. It was my next to last year teaching high school, and I had a group of 3 parents whose daughters were friends, and these parents were, I'm going to say, harassing me. I mean, it was that bad. Every time I walked in the school, maybe once a week, I would see these parents at the counselor's office. Anytime I sent home a grade, I would get an annotated scanned copy back. It was ridiculous. And so it was harassment. When one of them would be mad, they would tell all the other ones, and I would get an email from all three. So what do you know? When I invite parents in at the end of the year to be baristas for a poetry slam, I would do a poetry slam coffee shop. Kids would wear a beret, talk in what I would call slammy voice. They would read poems they had written, and the parents were my baristas. Guess who volunteers to come in? The angry parents. And y'all, I was tormented. I mean, I felt sick to my stomach. I thought I could cancel this event. This is really how bad it is. Or maybe I'll just cancel it for their class period. And I knew none of that was an option because the kids were excited about this. And it was something that I looked forward to every year. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take a risk. I'm going to let them see who I am in person, which is, I think, a pretty pretty daggone good teacher. I want them to see who I am in person, and I want the kids, not to miss this opportunity. So guess what? The angry parents came in. They were my volunteers. They were so helpful. When we were done, they cleaned up everything. And even though this was toward the end of the year, I don't remember getting any more harassing emails or calls after that. I think they finally saw this person as a human being, and maybe we should stop being witches. Amen. So most parents are relying on their children's version of you. And with little kids or kids who are good in class, a lot of times that can be accurate. But for the kids I taught, the ones I was hearing from, it was not an accurate representation. I knew how hard I was working. I knew how much I cared. I knew how much I was writing really good lessons for my kids. But these parents were relying on the children's version of me. And once they met me, it set them straight. So don't be afraid to invite them in. As a matter of fact, I developed my love for chai latte from a dad whose son was failing my class. But after he met me, he really believed I was trying to help that kid. So the bottom line, you will have jerk parents. And yes, I say the word, I tell the truth. I try to be real. But most parents do want to help. And you can even win over a few of the jerks. Change what you can change. If there's anything I brought up in this presentation where you're thinking, okay, Suzy, that's something where I could get better. I could put in grades more proactively. I could call instead of email. I could nudge parents, even though I really want the kids to do the work. Change what you can change, and then document the rest. When you do have those that are harassing, get your administrators involved. Don't be afraid to tell them that somebody is really going above and beyond to make you miserable. Document everything you can. You can change what you can change and document the rest. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, would you mind subscribing at the bottom of this video? You just click the little thumbs up. Share the video. That would be such a blessing to me and to my little blog that I'm trying to launch. And I hope that you will get even more to help you find your more as you watch more of these videos. Have a great day. Be blessed.